talk to me 30 years from now if, God forbid, you have dementia or you have cancer and it could have been prevented, or you could have gotten more days if you had just decided 10, 15, 20 years ago that you would take one day of rest. You would do that in a heartbeat. But right now it seems impossible to you because you have so much to do. This is StRest. I'm Kerstin Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So in our last solo, we talked about the three main components to your wellness and how those are impacting your stress. And that was nutrition, how you eat, how you move, and how you sleep. We're going to finish it off with two more for you today. But before I dive in, I want to pray for us. I feel like there are a lot of you out there who just need a word of prayer. So I'm going to start that. And also, I really want to be able to give you what you need in today's episode. So dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing everybody to this podcast, whether they are in their car, at home, at work, exercising. Please speak through me. Use my words, your words through me to fill them up, Lord. And we thank you for these healthy, beautiful brains and bodies, and that we are exactly where we're supposed to be right now. So the next two things we're going to talk about are your time, your work, your time, and how you can reorganize that. The two biggest stressors that you're going to find in your life are work and relationships. We're going to skip over relationships and we're going to go straight to work. It's estimated that in the US, work-related stress is costing US corporations more than $300 billion every single year. And that's in absenteeism, turnover rate, legal fees, and healthcare costs. What's happening when you're at work is that you're constantly in a hurry and in a form of stress, because more and more US companies, and when you're at work, and this could be whether you are working for a big corporation or your boss is like a tiny little human, you have to do more than one thing at a time. So you're multitasking like crazy and your brain really, really can't take it. You're rushing around nonstop at work, whether it's at home or it's at a job. And when you're rushing around like that, your brain thinks that you're being chased by a puma. You're in constant cortisol. That's that fight or flight that we're talking about all the time. And it could also be as a result of just the stressors of the people that you work with or your boss or the communication level, whatever it might be. You have this constant cortisol bath. Now, remember we talked about last time, cortisol isn't all bad. Like there's good reasons for it, but we don't want to be under it all the time. So one of the best things you can do, the one thing that you can remember at work to help with your work-related stress is to slow down. And this is really great for life in general, but specifically in the workplace. In order to continue in your career, you need to slow down. Here's a great way to make this work for you. I want you to get out your calendar. I like a paper calendar. I like to be able to use colored pens and pretty stickers and inspirational messages. It's like calming to me. But I want you to get out your calendar and I want you to put in 15-minute breaks. 15 minutes on the end of every single meeting. Because right now you're probably rushing from one meeting to one meeting. In your virtual calendar, all of those meetings are butted up right next to each other. You need to have 15 minutes in between every single one. And that's not, oh, now I can clear my inbox during those 15 minutes, or, oh, I can swing by Target and pick something up that we forgot. No, that is actual 15 minutes of a brain break. It's time for you to go outside and stretch and to walk and to get some sunlight like we talk about in the first solo episode that you heard. This is time for us to do yoga nidra. I love yoga nidra. It's non-sleep deep rest. It's not spiritual. It's not yoga. It is basically somebody talking you through the different parts of your body. It's fantastic. You can find it for free on YouTube. I really, really love it. And you could do it for 10 minutes in your office. I've done it in the car before, and you can do it at home, obviously, as well. It's 10 minutes of taking a break. It's putting phones down and taking a break. So 15 minutes after every single appointment. You're going to have less appointments that way, but your body needs that. Remember, let's go back to a perimenopausal or a menopausal woman. What you were doing in your 30s, you can't do in your 40s and your 50s because your body isn't made for it anymore. So in order to be able to do close to what you did in the past, you have to put more breaks in. So in your work life, 15 minutes in between every single appointment. And the same thing when you're at home, between having to go to dentist appointments or do things for the kids, you need 15 minutes in between. You need to stop being in a hurry. You need to allow yourself to be bored. Boredom looks a lot like freedom, my friend. You got to do the 15-minute rule because that's one of the easiest, and I know it's not easy, but one of the easiest ways for you to keep your job. Because since the biggest stressors in life are going to be your work and your relationships, some of you need to change that job. It's one of those questions that I get all of the time when people ask me, why did you leave QVC? And stress was a big part of it. It was a big stressful job. The actual act of being on TV and talking to you all and presenting things, that wasn't stressful. That was fun. That filled me up. But all the other parts of working in a corporation and the hours and the time away from the family, that was very, very stressful. One of the biggest reasons that you aren't happy in your job or you're stressed out in your job is because you're not aligned with your purpose. Here's the good news. 83% of US workers are willing to take less money in order to keep their jobs. So if you are staying in your job because of money, because it's what your parents always told you should do, it's what you've always done because you don't know if you can do anything else because you feel like you're too old to change, that's all lies. Be part of the 83%. Who are willing to take less in order to be happy. And I would change out that word happy to less stressed. If you go back and listen, the whole reason for me being here and talking about stress is because of the black spots in my mom's brain. I bet if we could ask her, if we could go back and we could ask her, okay, would you change your job? Would you give all your money in the world, take less money if we could take away those black spots and you wouldn't have gotten dementia? She would have said yes. And I don't want you to be in a situation one day where you're sick, whether it's a chronic illness or it's something like Alzheimer's. And you know that if you would have decided to have less stress in your life, you could have avoided that. I don't want you to have to be in that position. Just do it now. So I know it's scary. I know walking away from a job that's a secure paycheck is super, super scary. Believe me, I know. But sometimes you have to do it. And in the meantime, you do that 15-minute rule to give yourself less space for stress. So I'm not telling that you have to change your job. I'm not telling that you have to quit your job, but I did, as all of you know. But first I went on a sabbatical. So protect one day, 15-minute rule and protect one day. My family and I left in 2023, many of you know, to be missionaries. We went down to northern Baja, California, Mexico, to a small little town called La Misión. It started as a dream, part of what I knew I needed to do in my life a really long time ago, probably going on 10 years ago. Only a couple of years into QVC, I just knew and I felt this calling from the Lord that we needed to go serve in a different country. Now, not everybody has that calling. You can be missionaries at home as well, but I felt called to go out of the country. And part of it also was because of my family. My family didn't come together kind of in the old-fashioned way. My husband and I met when I was really young. I was only 4 when I met him, and I was shocked. I was like, wait, I didn't think I'd get married or find the guy of my dreams until I was at least 30. But he was everything that I wanted, at least on paper. I was even big on writing things down then. And so we fell in love and we actually got engaged within like 7 months. And then we were married a year later. So I was married when I was 25 years old. So that was easy. And that was surprising. I will tell you, it has not been easy since then because no marriage is really perfect, I don't think. But it started to get hard within a couple of years when we decided that we wanted to start a family, and we went through miscarriage and we went through infertility. And when we were finally blessed with our beautiful family, none of us really looked like each other. My first daughter was born in Compton in California, and she's full Mexican. United States citizen, but her roots are in Mexico. My second daughter is born in San Diego, California. She came unwillingly out of my womb about 5 months after the first child was born. And she's very Irish German, doesn't look like me either. They say that it was the right sperm and egg, but sometimes I don't know, although she does look like her daddy a lot. And then my son, Ben, was born 6 years later in Philadelphia, but that was only after his birth mother came here from Honduras. So we are a mixed race family of 5 living in mainline Pennsylvania. And while we don't really look like everybody else, I wanted my children to be able to see more that looked familiar, but also see a different way of life, because this isn't really real life where we live. I mean, and I'll be the first to admit, having a job as a QVC show host for so long and having a steady paycheck and having a 3,000 square foot house and a pool and the yard and went on vacations, and that's not real life. When you leave this area, most of the world is under poverty. And I wanted them to be able to see something different and be able to have empathy for that as well. I mean, their biggest concerns really is, are we going to get an iPhone? Are we going to get pliables today and get highlights in my hair? By the way, highlights for a child? Oh my goodness. I got my daughter highlights for the first time. Way expensive. I digress. So what we ended up doing was deciding that we needed to go on this missions trip at a time when it would be good for them, at good ages for them. So that was 2023. And I felt very, very confident in making that decision, but then I had to tell QVC, and it wasn't the best reaction. That nothing like that had ever happened before for my company as well as my husband's company. So we had to kind of recreate things, and it wasn't going very well. So the Lord kind of pushed me and said, you need to offer up to quit. And at this point in 2022, I was not ready to leave. I was just not ready to leave a job. We weren't financially secure enough, but I followed the Lord's calling, and with a lot of peace in my heart, I offered that as an opportunity to my company. And they said, no, we'll make this work. So they made it work and we went. But as many of you followed, it was without pay, it was without benefits. And I wasn't quite sure my job would be there when I came back. I mean, there's a lot of other people who would love the spot on Saturday Morning Q. Would my job be there when I came back? But we went, and it was fantastic. And we went down to northern Baja California, and we served in this small medical clinic. We went down there to serve. We went down there to help others. We went down there for our kids. But what I found was an antidote to stress. And there was a couple of big reasons why. One, they were never in a hurry, like I talked about. Nobody was ever hurrying around. And 2, they always had a Sabbath day. I knew I was kind of out of my element towards the beginning when I rushed up to a guard stand. There was a lot of guards down there. Mexico is a lovely place, and they're really trying to bring back our view of them. And I felt safe while I was down there, but there was a lot of guards and there was a lot of military. And I rushed up and I said, "Siento, señor, yo vivo." And I was talking really fast. And I always say sorry. I always said sorry when I was down there. I think it was because of my Spanish and being a woman. I don't know. And he said, "Señora." And I got scared for a second, because the guy had a really big gun, but he was very kind, and he was just trying to get me to slow down. He just wanted to have a greeting first. And it happened when I was at the clinic too, this Christian medical clinic, and I'd be rushing around and I'd run up to one of the nurses, "Miriam, lo siento, yo necesito." And she'd be like, "Hola, señora Kerstin, ¿cómo estás?" Just trying to get me to slow down. And that's uncomfortable for us. We don't slow down. I mean, take out your cell phone right now and look at your text messages. Most of them, most likely, are you just with like demands, questions, maybe an emoji. P.S. And by the way, I hate the thumbs up emoji. I don't know why, I just do. We're not even doing greetings face to face, vocally. We're not even doing greetings when we're writing on our cell phones. So they were never in a hurry, and you would think that they would be, because this was a land of extreme poverty. I mean, we had to hike for our water. You could only shop one time during the week at the open air market. That's when you got your food. I look around the room that I'm in right now at the beautiful, walls that are painted, and there it was, crumbling walls and floors that were of dirt, and everything. If it just rained even a little bit, you couldn't go anywhere. I mean, cars didn't work very well. We had a small car, but it didn't really even matter, because if there was even a little bit of rain, everything washed out. It was better to be on horseback or by foot. And you would think that people would be rushing around to get out of that type of poverty, but they weren't. They were in it, looking around to their friends and seeing who they could help. There was this bigger sense of community. And they also all had a Sabbath day. As I was making appointments for people, I'd hear that a lot especially from the other missionaries. "Oh no, I can't work. I can't do that on Tuesday. It's my Sabbath day." Or, "I can't do that. It's on my Sabbath day." Sabbath comes from the Bible, and it's got its roots in Judaism, really. But we are called, it's in the Bible, it's one of the 10 commandments to hold sacred the Sabbath day, to have one day of rest. I mean, the Lord rested. If he was able to take a day off from creating the world, we can take a day off from Instagram. So on those days, they weren't doing appointments, they weren't shopping. There was just a lot of being together, a lot of great food, a lot of fiestas, a lot of great community. So they all held a Sabbath day. Let me back up. If you want to really decrease your stress level, go on a true sabbatical and get out of the country and go for purpose, not for a paycheck. Have you always wanted to rock babies in a third world country? Have you always wanted to dig ditches for wells? Do it for a year, do it for 6 months, do it for 2 months, but get out, because I will tell you, the feeling of stress just kind of completely leaving your body and your brain, it's almost instantaneous when you get out of the United States. Because here in the United States, even when you serve, even when you are a missionary on your home soil, it's still about producing and what you can prove and what you can create and how fast you can do it. And in other countries, it's just not like that. And especially if you're around poverty. And I know to so many of you that sounds impossible. Like, I couldn't possibly take time off from my job and go serve in a third world country. But the only thing impossible really is death or separation from the Lord. And many of you are choosing that over the hard work it takes to be well and to hear Him. And some of you are so stressed out that you need to get away for a while, no matter what it costs monetarily or emotionally or physically. But if you can't do that, or it's something that you need to think about, and this is all mindset change, then I encourage you to protect one day. And here's how that looks. So when we came back from our missions trip, I was so inspired by the Sabbath day that I really wanted to be able to do that here at home. And it's harder, for sure it's harder. In the Bible, it says you're to keep sacred the Sabbath and you're not to do any work, and neither are your sons or your daughters. And that's kind of the hardest part, because especially as a mom of teenagers, like, there's lots of stuff going on the weekends and they want to be happy and they want to go do things. But to be able to encourage them to also take a Sabbath day is really, really hard. So here's how it looks. There's no consumption on that day. If you're somebody like me who's really involved in church, it probably can't be a Sunday. It probably needs to be a Saturday or a different day of the week. You're not grocery shopping. You're not going. My husband likes to go to Costco one Sundays, so that can't be our Sabbath day because we're not doing that. You're not buying things on Amazon. You're not buying things on QVC. In fact, one of my biggest tips for you for reducing your stress is to put all of your shopping on one day. There's something very freeing about when you're doing bills at the end of the month, not having all of these items, this line items, because you shopped every single day, because you went to the store every single day, because you were on Amazon every single day. In my family, what we do is we create a note I have a shared note in my phone. And when somebody needs something from Amazon or someplace else, they put it on there and it gets purchased on Saturday, if it gets purchased at all. We don't shop during the rest of the week. Shop at QVC, please do. Just put it all onto a list and buy it in one day if you can. So on your Sabbath day, you're not shopping at all. But another hack would be just do your shopping on one day anyway. You're not on your phone. You put your phone away. You're not checking emails. You're not on social media. That's a big one. I still have social free Sundays, and it is such a freeing day for me to not have any social media to look at. I really love it. It's nerve wracking, but it's so wonderful. So you take all of that off the table. You are not running errands. You are, again, you're practicing being bored. You're playing games, you're talking, you're reading books, you're having yummy food, you're creating meals, but you're not producing for the world. You're not furthering your career or looking at things that can pull your focus. You're free from all of that, and you're spending more time in prayer and in communion with other people. Protect one day. And that, I know, sounds almost impossible to some people. You're like, is there even one day when I could not do things? Yes, you can. You need to. Your brain needs to. Let's go back to the whole reason that we're having this conversation is to avoid the black spots in your brain, to avoid the chronic diseases that are caused by stress. Talk to me 30 years from now if, God forbid, you have dementia or you have cancer and it could have been prevented, or you could have gotten more days if you had just decided 10, 15, 20 years ago that you would take one day of rest. You would do that in a heartbeat. But right now it seems impossible to you because you have so much to do. One day. Protect one. And I think you can do it. I really do. That time when we were on our sabbatical when we were in Mexico were some of the happiest times of my entire life. When we were more together as a family, when the stress was just so much less, could sleep better. And it's interesting because you think that we'd be more stressed out since we didn't have any income. We had a super small house. We were dealing with literally life and death and poverty around us, but we were so much happier. And I know that that's part of the reason why I had the courage to be able to leave my job a year and a half later. The Lord started encouraging me that I needed to make a change. And it wasn't because QVC was bad. It was because the Lord wanted to use me more in that space of wellness and in faith. I was doing that at QVC. I was able to talk to all of you about Jesus when I had those types of shows. I was able to talk to you about health and wellness when I had those types of shows. But if you really look at my schedule and what I was doing, that was about 10 or 20% of my job at QVC. And the rest was everything else. And I love shoes and I love makeup and I love clothes and all of those things. But God really wanted me to focus all my attention on that 10%, make that the big piece of it. So I was scared to leave for sure because of that income. But having lived through a time, 3.5 months, where we had no income, where we had less, and seeing that my kids were happier and I was happier, it gave me that courage to be able to make the change that I needed, which is another reason why I say some of you need to go take a sabbatical to see how your life can be better with less at times. And there's real science behind that as well. And you're going to hear from a woman coming up in the next month of StRest who talks to us about decluttering and being a minimalist and minimalizing things and all the studies that go behind that and all the science that comes to when you have less, you are less stressed out. So fast forward to taking that big risk to leave QVC. A big part of it was because of stress. I knew I needed to release my stress. I knew that the Lord needed me to write books, do this podcast, speak on stages, be more involved with my kids, be in church groups more, speaking to church groups more. And I couldn't do that and also work 60 hours a week during fourth quarter at QVC. And if I was 30, maybe I could. But let's go back to how our bodies metabolize stress in our 40s and our 50s and beyond. I knew I needed to honor my body. So I have to be able to do yoga nidra in the afternoon, take breaks, make sure that I'm working out and lifting weights, make sure that I'm eating right. And so I can meal prep and things like that. I have to be able to do that and slow down, which means I have to cut something out. And what I'm not going to cut out is all that good stuff that's helping me reduce the stress. I'm not going to cut out the kids. I'm not going to cut out the stuff that God wants me to do. So I had to cut out the job. Now, I know that's not a popular thing to say because there are so many of you out there who are like, I can't just quit my job. I have to actually feed my kids. I'm not telling you to do that. In the meantime, put in the 15-minute rule. Take one day off a week. Put in those little things that can help you keep your job. But at the same time, be really thinking about your purpose, be really thinking about your core values, and make sure that you're aligned in your job. And if you're not, by all means, keep the job you have, but start looking for what is next. And it all goes down to faith. That fear that you feel of changing jobs or doing something different or reducing the stress, that's you living in the future. And you need to live right here, right now. Right here, right now, with where God has you, and let Him take control. And control is not the right word because God doesn't have control. Nobody has control. Let Him take care of what's happening in the future. So I have dozens of other life hacks, and you hear them all throughout this podcast on how to reduce your stress, go from stress to rest. But you won't be able to do any of them. You won't be able to do the 15-minute rule. You won't be able to change how you eat and how you move and how you sleep. And you won't be able to go on a sabbatical or rethink your job if you don't have courage. And that courage looks a lot like faith. And while my mom and the black spots in her brain and everything that went into that, I know that she had faith, but I'm not sure that she had the courage to put that faith in action. She was always too busy saying, oh, I trust you, God, but I'm going to control it over here. I'm going to make my way. And I think that we do that a lot. You say, I'm going to give it to God. It's faith over fear. Jesus, take the wheel. But then you turn around and you're over here planning and plotting and trying to create the perfect path because you really don't trust Him to do it. You have to have the faith. You have to surrender and let go. Surrender your plan and understand that His plan is better. You might need to make some hard decisions. in order to get out of stress. It could mean giving up sugar and alcohol. It could mean putting up boundaries in your life with people who are around you. It could mean changing your job and getting out of shift work so you can protect your sleep and get better sleep. Could mean going on a sabbatical. But again, you're not going to be able to do any of those if you don't have the courage and you don't have the faith. So that's the first place you need to start. On your knees with the Lord, leaning into your faith, knowing that he can give you that peace that surpasses all understanding. That's really what it is. I'm scared. I don't necessarily know where the next paycheck comes from. I don't. I mean, at the time of recording this, we're a couple of weeks past me leaving QVC, and I don't see what March is going to bring. There's opportunities and God is working, but it's not like, okay, I know a paycheck's going to hit my bank on the 30th. I'm not sure what's going to happen with my teenage girls, my marriage, health. I just got results from the latest ultrasound back because they're continually checking me to see if the endometriosis is back. We just don't know. You just don't know. I'm scared just like you are. You have to have the faith that God has led you to it and he's going to lead you through it, and that he can help you reduce the stress, and that even if whatever outcome, I don't get a paycheck the next day, something happens to my kids, there is a bad spot on blood work or whatever it might be, that God can give me the peace that surpasses all understanding. And he can give that to you as well. Doesn't mean that everything's going to turn out perfect, but it means that he can still give you the peace in that. That's what it was like when we were in Mexico. That's what it was like in poverty. Everything might not have been perfect, but they had that peace that surpasses all understanding. So why do you care? I asked this question at the top of the last one because you care about everybody else, but why do you care about your levels of stress? And I'll tell you, I care because I know what it's like to have a baby rocked against my chest, that weight of a child. And I want that again with my grandchildren, God willing, years from now. I want to be able to serve more. That's why I care. I want to be able to go back and serve in a third world country, my own backyard, my children. I want to be able to sit on a dock with my husband and watch the sun go into the water when we are so old that we have no business being on a dock by ourselves. I want all of that. And I know that I can't have the high level of stress that I've had in my life and have that as well. Thanks so much for listening to this solo episode. We'll do more of these in the coming months. And if you have any ideas, topics that you want me to speak on, or questions that you have, please email me or drop them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and share so we can make the world a less stressful place. God bless. So what do we have to look forward to? Well, coming up on the next episode of StRest, we talk to a good friend of mine from QVC, Jill Martin. You know her from Steals and Deals and the fourth hour of the Today Show. I mean, she's the one who created all of this shopping through the news. Plus, she is the creator of the most amazing Sherpa wear you'll ever find. She's also someone who's been through not only cancer, but also divorce at the same time. She knows a little something about stress. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Wait till you see where Jill Martin is during our podcast and how many times she has to move. That's coming up on the next episode of StRest. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kerstin.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.Kerstin-Lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.